Chromanoids. 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 Chromanoids.
Okay, so welcome to Chromanoids, this chit-chat on humans, non-humans, and everything in between. We have now Andres Jaque and the Office for Political Innovation, personified in Laura Mora. So, of course, I would like to start with the beginning. Are you human?
My answer to that could be like, okay, I can be a human, but never ever asked me if I wanted to be. So I had like no choice. And that's in that point I think instead of answering if we want or not, or if we have the chance to decide that it's really important to go through the projects that answer to this question if we are, because if you look at some of them, you might want to be a human, but definitely like the other ambitions, you definitely would not. So
let's say that my problem is with R, with the R. So I would say, could we take it for, do you perform as human or something like that? But what I would say is that, in a way, the notion of human as an independent being that is only produced by a very particular technology and biology could be replaced by one in which we consider that we perform simultaneously or we are part of performances in which simultaneously the human and the non-humans is put in place, and somehow it's the composition of a number of different things that get together through certain performances. I say, do we perform humanity? Do we perform certain notions of humanities? Something like that.
Yeah. Well, Andres Jaque and the Office for Political Innovations are the designers of this biennial. So the question would be like, how do you design a biennial that questions design?
Well, I think we also question the designs of biennials, in the sense that we, for instance, were, I think also with the support of the curatorial part for sure, but we were all the time like really perseverant in the way that we could, display all the projects together and trying to reinforce the curatorial statements and to really design not in an automatically mode. That was. I think that is one of the success.
Yeah, we came up with a number of strategies. Like the first one is that we were not looking at independent objects or installations, but actually trying to put them together in an ecosystem in which some would react with others. So instead of having isolated pieces and doing all the efforts to have this piece in a white cube that you could see with a very uniform light, we were actually colliding them and making problems about putting them together emerge. And for instance, if you think of the Greek school, from the very beginning it's kind of a number of clusters where different words that are coming from different layers of time and that are related with different societies are being kind of placed in a way that their collaborations but also their confrontations could be discussed. So the way we were doing that is actually about producing interrogation through the encounter of different things. And the second thing that we did was very practical. Normally biennials are, okay, this is important, this is the content, and then we have the events that are, okay, they're kind of important, but they could be a little bit more messy. And then we have third, it's kind of functional things like the cafe or the bookshop or the whatever. And that's the way that most biennials have been designed, and this is the way that this biennial was designed in the past. We decided to think of these three categories as something that could be overlap, and that actually is overlap. So you go to the bookshop and you see content. You go to the cafe and you discuss content. So basically, from our perspective, there was no difference. So this is a case of it. We're trying to collide the research that the group that was doing research on social media have done with events like this that could also travel online and that have been also practical because people could come here and rest and plug in their phones. So the idea is this idea of collision or bringing together things, but also functions. Yeah.
Yeah, you really embrace this idea of a kind of a polluted or hybridated kind of temporality, something that it is addressed in this biennial through several projects, of course, but even in the subtitle of this biennial. How could you design even like the temporality of the biennial? No, I mean like you are not only like displaying in a way like the past or present objects or designs or conceptions, but even like futuristic kind of ones, but also just like you are trying just like to expand in the social media and some other events. How could you design temporality?
In a way, I think that also by, for instance, considering that, I mean, not by programming necessarily, because from our point of view that was something that would happen anyway, and that, but what is for us was very important. I don't know if you would agree, but we were discussing that, for instance, places that could be showing things simultaneously could be being part of archiving them, discussing them. So could we think of temporality as something that is already embedded in this place? That was the idea. So this is registering at the same time that is showing. And we even wanted to do it very obvious by having all the things overlap. Like for instance, we are projecting at the same time that we're showing. And we have the cameras there that should be probably some holes, but that will come. And, but it's by bringing together these functions also, like making it possible for the displays to be registered, to be broadcasting, to be also the source of discussion that could travel informally with a coffee or something like that. We were thinking that temporality would be embedded. No?
Yeah, I would add one more thing, that temporality is also about alter things that have happened. And I think this also, like this display plays in that, no? Like if in the future with this chroma world you can talk about what has happened here, but in another way, no? You can really alter what has happened. And I think that's like a great point.
Mm-hmm. In your work, you're always trying just to deal with architecture and controversy, for example, or discussions and debates. No, you are not trying to pacify it in a way, or just like to make a peaceful kind of design, but something that has to be discussed, that has to make, that has to be accountable in a way. How did you decide, or how did you design that kind of accountability in this project in particular?
Well, first, there's been a huge discussion about everything in this project, and we've tried to communicate that. We do that normally by writing with the resources that we have, by writing, by making it possible to register, to keep different versions of it. So the process is already something that for us is important, and as we do with other projects, we will publish it, we will tell about that, and we will keep the discussion going. But the second thing that, in my opinion, is more important is what is the way that we could contribute to make it possible a number of different voices being brought together. And that is something that I don't think that can be done perfectly, but one of the things we try to have the biennial adapted to the different intentions and sensitivities of the people that were participating. And of course that's very imperfect because we don't have that much time, we don't have that many resources, but in a way, the way we organize it is instead of providing just space and kind of certain support to people that were participating, we would also think that it would be interesting to have a long conversation in which different the technicians, the people that were doing the production, and the authors could be brought together in discussing the way they wanted to be in the biennial. And there's very diverse projects coming to the biennial, and we were trying to cater to all of them. For instance, there's projects that Keller Istanbul, that I'm seeing Keller here, for instance, presented a project that was sound-based and that needed to occupy very specific places. So we were trying to find a way for that to happen. And together with many other people, and there were projects that required to be time-based only, and we were trying to make it possible for all of them to be part of the biennial. So it was also infrastructure in a way, embedded in the design, but in the process as well.
Yeah, I think that these clusters that we've called for a long time, it's also really important that they are multimedia, like most of them, I would say. It's not only about images, but also about mixing one image with the sound that from other piece coming from the end of the corridor. So in the end, these like multimedia landscapes or clusters, as we call them, I think this was part of the design. This was like a very, like probably the basic idea that we always wanted to follow.
Okay, just like to close, what would you say, what would you be like the final tip of designing this biennial?
I would say that we didn't design the biennial because we did a little bit of it, but for us it's very important to recognize that design is very distributed. So probably the name is not very good. Designers of the design biennial, we would say probably that we did something that got together, of course, with the curatorial proposals and work, but also with all the contributors, but also with the people that is coming now, that also with things that are even accidents that will happen now. And I think that probably the design of the biennial is not something that could be entitled to a team of people, but it's very collective.
Yes.
I would say we take it seriously. No, what do you think?
Yeah, totally agree. I think maybe when we live now, and this has been like the first part of the design, but definitely from here for a month, the design is still happening, and it will change many things, and we probably, it didn't end up with our plans. Yeah. It's still happening.
Okay.
So probably a new definition of design would be needed,
yes.
Or who does this, or the designer.
Okay, so let's have like this question in the air. Many thanks for everything.
Thanks.
Thank you.